The PS2 driver contains this initialization function, and its main purpose is to figure out what device is connected. It tells me whether a keyboard is connected or a mouse is connected, and then it initializes that device correctly. So let's take a look at how this initialization actually works. A PS device, generally speaking, when it powers on, it has some default values. It just has a controller inside. It goes, it does some sort of a testing, and then it confirms that that test is okay, and it just sends it, and it goes with the default. Of course, you can change it later if you wanted to. But now let's walk through this particular implementation of the initialization so we see what's it doing. So the first step we will do is actually we'll flush the FIFO buffer. Since we're initializing, whatever is in the FIFO buffer is junk. If we have anything, we're just going to read all of it and just basically throw it out. We're not doing anything with it. The next step is actually I'm going to transmit a command. So let me just show you a few of these commands that we will be utilizing. So we have some commands in here, and we have some responses from the device in here. Okay, so let's take a look at the commands. So the first command we're going to be sending is actually FF. So if you send an FF to the host is sending it to the mouse or the keyboard, you're basically instructing it to reset itself and go and run the self test, and then come back after the diagnosis is completed and tell me that, hey, the test has been successful. So let's take a look at what the code is doing. It's actually transmitting that particular byte. So it's utilizing these lower level functions in the driver, the transmit byte and receive byte. That's what actually is based on. And then it waits for a couple of seconds, and then after 2 seconds, it's just gonna read. Generally speaking, the device should respond with an acknowledge, okay? That it received the reset, and it actually ran its own self-tests and everything is going well, and I'm going to acknowledge, and the acknowledge is generally speaking is FA. So the first test we're going to do is we're going to be reading a data byte from there, and we're just going to test the return value. Is it FA? If it is, fine. If it's not, that means something has happened, something is wrong. The device did not accept my reset, so I'm just going to return -1, indicating that there's something wrong in here. It's a wrong response or no response for that matter. Maybe it didn't acknowledge. Okay, and then if it did acknowledge, we're gonna have, apparently the keyboards and the mouse have like slightly different responses. So we take a look at in here and we'll see the second device response. So if the device responds with AA and nothing else, these are all in hex, by the way, these numbers. If the device responds in AA, that means it's a keyboard. If the device responds in AA followed by 00, that device is a mouse. Okay, so let's take a look what the code is doing. What the code is doing, it's asking, did I receive an AA? If I did not receive an AA after the acknowledgement, that means I have a device that is actually neither a mouse nor a keyboard. So I'm just going to return -1, and I'll just get out of this initialization. It's neither a mouse or a keyboard. However, if that packet happened to be AA, that means I will need to read another packet. So if that packet happened to be -1, or like if you go out to the read and it tells you, well, I'm going to return -1 if the FIFO is empty. This means that you read AA, but you don't read anything else. Well, this is a keyboard. That's what it means. Okay, so if it is a keyboard, we're going to return 1, and 1 is a positive number indicating that a keyboard is connected. And that's it. Basically, the function happens to be done. Okay, now if it wasn't -1, I'm going to test it. Is it 00? If it's not 00, that means it's not a keyboard, and because the keyboard will just return AA and it'll stop. What happens is it returned AA and it returns something other than 00. So it's some other PS2 device, which is unlikely, but we're just going to return it. However, if it returns 00, that means I know that I have a mouse, and that's it. So the device is a mouse. And as it turns out, the default value for the keyboard, the default setups and configuration for the keyboards are okay, but the default values for the mouse are not okay. So we're not going to configure the keyboard at all. We're just going to know that it's a keyboard and we go forward, but the mouse, we're going to have to do something else. And that something else is actually, we will have to send it another command, and that command is called F4, and that puts the mouse in stream mode. Stream mode, it just tells the mouse, you should only send me data when you actually change. Basically, when you move the mouse or press one of the buttons, it will send the data. That's basically the stream mode. So by default, it's the PS2 mouse is not configured to be this way. So we're gonna just send it that particular command, and we're gonna wait for about 100 milliseconds. We're gonna see the confirmation. The confirmation should be an acknowledgement like before. It's just basically you send the device something, it should acknowledge. If it did not acknowledge it, I mean, there's something wrong with just return a negative number, so something happened. If it did basically receive an FA, that means I was able to figure out that it's a mouse. I figured out that to put it in stream mode, it acknowledged, and I'll just return a 2. So if you take a look at this function and take a look at the values it returns a positive number whenever it actually detects something good, and it returns a negative number when there's a problem. The positive numbers, if it's a 1, that means it's a keyboard. If it's a 2, that means it's a mouse, and it's actually a really configured mouse. So this initialization is really useful. If you run it, it's going to go to the USB or the PS2 and just basically figure out what device is connected and put it in the right mode.